Good morning. It is early February here in Kansas, and it's been cold, cold, cold. It's hard to think about doing any serious fishing when it's this cold. But I've been thinking about a trip I've got booked in late May to Canada, and we booked that trip as early as possible after ice out in Canada. And the reason is because we wanted to have an opportunity to catch Northern Pike on a fly. It is just a blast to catch those things when they're up in the shallows and feeding aggressively, trying to fill their bellies after a winter under the ice. So that's what we're going to tie today is a pike fly, and we're going to call that just very simply a red and white pike fly. You can tie this in other colors too. Matter of fact, I think yellow and orange would be a killer. But I've chose the red and white in this case because there's a classic fly pattern, a classic lure used for Northern Pike that's a Daredevil spoon, and the classic colors are red and white. And it's probably caught more Northern Pike and other species in Canada than any other particular lure. So it's good to have a red and white fly designed for Northern Pike in your box. So that's what we're going to be tying today. And we're going to keep this simple and just use pretty basic materials. It's going to be primarily craft fur. But to start, we've got a size 1/0 Gamakatsu B10S stinger in the vise. And we're going to add a little bit of lead weight just to help get it down to the bottom of the lake. We'll probably be fishing in less than 4 feet of water. So we'll take about, say, 8 wraps of 0.025 lead wire on this 1/0 hook. And the thread we're going to use today is a 140 denier ultra thread. We use two different colors. We'll use both red and white. We'll start out with white. And I've pushed our wire thread wraps up to about maybe 2 eye lengths behind the hook eye. So we'll start our thread, wrap up to the lead wire, jump it over the lead wire to the other side, and if you notice, we've got quite a ridge where we hit the edge of the lead wire, and so that makes it difficult to jump our other materials over. So we're going to build a pair of thread ramps on each side of that lead wire. This will make the tie-in of materials we'll be using in the future much easier. Okay, come to the other side. And create our thread ramp. And then lash down our lead wire with some more thread wraps over the top. There we go. Now we can run our thread back to the bend of the hook. And tie in our first material. Our first material is going to be some craft fur. In this case, I'm using kind of a special craft fur. This is a polar flash. And or polar fur, a polar fleece, and it's got a little longer fibers than typical craft fur. That's why I like to use it on this fly, but regular craft fur will work just fine. And if you notice, I've got a square cut out of the hide. The reason I do that is because if I just take sections of the craft fur off the hide, it's kind of hard to control how much I'm using. So I want this to be fairly uniform, and so I always cut off a section of the craft fur, cut off the hide. Now that gives me a square like this, and I'll pull all the fibers down and then cut the backing off of all of these fibers. One thing about the craft fur, it's got all these hairs that are really light, and I have these lightweight hairs going everywhere and covering my clothes, which means that I'm going to be in trouble when my wife finds pieces of this craft fur all over the house, and she'll accuse me of transferring them, and she'll know who the culprit is. Okay, so now I'm going to grab the bundle of craft fur down about an inch or so, then use a comb to comb out the under fur. Because if you tried to tie this in right now, you'd have just way too much material. It'd make a nasty looking tie on the fly. See, I pulled all that material out. Now we'll take that craft fur, polar fiber, and we're going to use about the full length, but I'm going to cut it off just about maybe ½ inch from the end. We'll cut all that off. That'll give us a nice clean tie-in the back of the fly. Do a couple of 3 fairly loose wraps, put our thumbnail on top, and distribute those fibers around the hook shank. Okay, now we can tighten that up and tie down that craft fur. This gives us a little bit of a ledge to work around here up at the front of the tie-in point. So again, we'll build ourselves a little thread ramp to get up over that. There, that's good enough. Now we're going to go with some flash. I've got some pearl flashaboo. Great stuff. A lot of flash in this stuff. And we'll take, I don't know, 6 or 8 strands of that flashaboo. And we'll double that around the thread, even it up on both sides, and tie it down on one side, the near side. And then take half of that bundle to the far side and tie it down over there. So we have essentially the same number of strands on both sides of the fly. Work our thread back to the base of the craft fur tie-in point. And then We're going to cut that off just short of the tail by a little bit. Now we're going to add some additional flash, actually in a couple of places. We're going to use some UV polar chenille. Great stuff. It's going to provide some flash within the core of the body of the fly, as well as going to serve another purpose, and that is it's going to create a little bit of bulk under other craft fur tie-ins that will allow the fly to push more water. Okay, tie that in. And this polar chenille I'm using is in a pearl color, kind of keeping with our white and red theme. One more. Snip off the balance of our polar chenille. And wrap up over the fibers, trying to stroke as many of them rearward as possible. Now, time for more of the polar fiber, craft fur. Again, pull the material out away from the backing, get a good grip on it, and then cut the backing off. This really keeps you from making a big mess of your craft fur. And again, we're going to pinch that and use our comb to comb out that under fur. That'll do it. Okay, we want to measure this out because we want this length of the craft fur to come out to be slightly shorter than the first batch of craft fur. So we have a kind of a tapered torpedo appearance on the fly. So we can cut off the balance of our craft fur. And tie it in. Three fairly loose wraps, put our thumb on top. This one's a little more challenging to spread around the hook because we've got this polar chenille in there, and we've kind of got to work that around and try to get it to encompass the hook even around that polar chenille. You won't get all of it, but just do the best you can to get that polar chenille wrapped around, or get the craft fur wrapped around the hook shank. Okay, pull that down a little bit and let's tie it in. And let's add some more of the Flashaboo. Again, 6 or 8 strands of that stuff. Again, make sure we have half that bundle on each side of the hook. And we'll cut this off a little shorter than the last batch. There we go. And we're going to, again, go back and add just a little bit of the polar chenille. Again, this is going to provide a little bit of bulk and help hold that craft fur off of the shank of the hook. There we go. Snip off our excess. Stroke all those fibers rearward and tie them down. Now it's time to change thread colors. So we'll whip finish our white ultra thread. And go to some red. Now our last material to tie in is going to be some red craft fur. Treat this the same way. Pull our fibers down and trim off the backing. And use our comb to get rid of the underfur. And measure this out. We don't need as long a piece of this craft fur as we had for the white. So I think that's about the right length. And we're going to trim off a little bit longer than that, and I'll show you why. We're going to tie this in a reverse bulkhead style. So we're going to turn our bundle around so the fibers are facing out the front of the fly. And we'll take a couple of, actually 3 loose wraps, and then put our thumbnail up here and move those fibers so they can totally encompass the hook 360 degrees. Okay, now we'll tie all that down. Make sure that's nice and secure. Now we'll grab our handy dandy push tool. You can probably buy these things, but what this is just the tube off of like a Bic pen that you would get at a motel. I think I did steal this from the Days Inn. At any rate, put that in the center of your craft fur bundle, the red, and push that material rearward. And stroke it back with your fingers. Hold it in place, and then move your thread to the front. Start building up a cone in front of the bundle of craft fur, and eventually you'll ride up over the craft fur itself and create a little tapered head. It'll take a bunch of wraps to accomplish this purpose. And whip finish. Now I've got a couple of fibers out in front of the hook eye. We're going to trim those off. We don't need those. And we could fish this just like this and be just fine, but I'm going to add some eyes to it. And I've got some stick-on eyes. They're 1/8 inch stick-on eyes in a gold, and these are a prismatic stick-on eye. And you would think, since they're called stick-on eyes, that they really do stick, but they just barely stick. So they don't call them stick and stay, they just call them stick on. So take our bodkin and capture an eye, and we'll attach that eye on the side of the head. And try our best to stick it on so it holds it temporarily. Maybe it will stay there, maybe it won't. Okay, rotate the vise and grab another eye with our bodkin. We could apply some super glue and help with the sticking process. But with these small eyes, these 1/8 inch eyes, for me, I end up getting those eyes glued to my finger. So we're going to hold it in place as best we can. And try your best to get those eyes in the same alignment on both sides of the hook. We need to make a little bit of an adjustment. There we go. That looks about right to me. Now, ultimately, I'm going to build an epoxy, or put an epoxy coating on this, but if we try to do that now, we would just move the eyes around even more. So I need a way to hold those eyes in there temporarily. So I'm going to use some Loon UV fly finish in a flow. And the reason I'm using this flow is because it's very viscous, and it's going to actually flow underneath those eyes a little bit and allow the eyes to be stuck at least long enough for me to get the epoxy coating made. So very carefully, I'll apply some flow and allow it to flow under the eye. You don't need too much, just enough to hold it in place. See, I already dislodged the eye. Okay. Then take our UV light and cure that so that it holds those eyes in place, at least till we get the epoxy on there. There we go. And then once we do the epoxy, you're going to see the entire head be encapsulated with the epoxy, and that will keep those eyes from popping off when an aggressive Northern Pike hits them. So there you have the red and white pike fly, and notice that it's got good bulk on the front. It's going to push a lot of water, and those pike just will not be able to stand it, I hope. Tie a few of these and give them a try on some pike or bass or other species as well.